Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are now calling for transparency from the Biden administration surrounding the botched U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And joining us now to talk all about this is a former Green Beret and veteran of the war in Afghanistan, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. So before we get into your recent resolution, the U.S. and our allies are warning of a terror threat at Kabul airport. How concerning is this grave and very specific ISIS threat?
Well, it is concerning. It is grave. We were briefed on it yesterday. And one thing for folks to understand is that ISIS in Afghanistan is a spoiler here. You know, Biden has this deal with the Taliban, which I completely disagree with. But ISIS is seeking to be the spoiler and send either suicide bombers or car bombs into this very crowded, very chaotic perimeter and cause mass casualties.
Congressman, thank you for your service and thanks for being here. You've introduced a resolution condemning Biden's Afghanistan failure, saying his decisions have led to a disorganized, chaotic, and abrupt evacuation of United States personnel and Afghan allies. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Well, we're joining our colleagues in the United Kingdom and Germany and elsewhere condemning Biden for this disaster that we're in, this humanitarian disaster that we're in, this blow to American credibility, and this future counterterrorism threat that we're going to face because of how Joe Biden has gone about this. And I have to tell you, we've received a number of briefings now. The disconnect between what we're hearing behind closed doors in private from his team and then what he's saying publicly is outrageous. Yeah. And the disconnect between the happy talk that we're hearing from him and Jen Psaki with the reality of what's happening on the ground is also outrageous. I and others were up all night along with my team trying to help American citizens get through Taliban and American lines, and they were turned away. These are U.S. passport holders and their families that aren't getting through. Yet we see these press briefings where everything's going fine and we're going to be mission accomplished and we're going to get out of here by August 31. It's a bunch of garbage. We are on the cusp of facing the largest mass hostage situation in American history. This is going to make 1979 in Tehran look like a sleepover because anything the Taliban wants going forward, money, recognition, support, all they have to do is go down the street and grab an American that was left behind by Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's so scary. You know, yesterday answering questions about the Afghanistan evacuations, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken addresses ongoing criticism. Take a listen.
I take responsibility. I know the president has said he takes responsibility. And I know all of my colleagues across government feel the same way. And I can tell you that there will be plenty of time to look back at the last 6 or 7 months, to look back at the last 20 years, and to look to see what we might have done differently.
Sir, I was watching him yesterday, and he basically said, well, Americans, we gave you an opportunity, you know, you just need to message us. I mean, the way he addressed it, and as somebody who served for our nation, what do you make of his remarks?
It's un-American. It's un-American to leave fellow Americans behind. Every single soldier and Marine out there is ready to go get them, but they're not being allowed to leave the airport by this White House. And it's un-American to let terrorists dictate the terms of how we go get our own citizens. But I'm glad Blinken has taken some responsibility here. He should resign at a minimum. But at the end of the day, the blood of these Afghans, the blood of Americans that are being left behind, and importantly, future victims of terrorist attacks that will emanate from Afghanistan. What happens there doesn't stay there. It spreads like a cancer. Those future 9/11s, San Bernardinos, Pulse nightclubs are also going to be on his hands, plus the American soldiers that have to go back over there to deal with Al-Qaeda 3.0, but now with no bases, no allies, and Taliban and Al-Qaeda that's armed to the teeth with American equipment. That blood is on their hands, too.
Congressman, you and I both served in the global war on terrorism in very different ways. We've both written about it extensively. You earned 4 Bronze Stars for our country. And I know that I have been feeling so much emotion over this over the last couple of weeks. Sadness and real anger. And I know that so many of our vets feel a sense of betrayal. Talk to us, sir, about how you're holding up with all of this and your message for our veterans community that does really feel like they've been betrayed here by their government.
Yeah, it is an unhealthy mix of betrayal, grief, and rage. I'll be candid with you, and I know so many feel that, but I want them to hear me loud and clear. It's not just the veterans, it's the Gold Star families, it's the victims of 9/11 and other terrorist attacks. Right. Their sacrifice was not in vain. America was kept safe for an entire generation that didn't have to worry about planes flying into buildings or suicide bombers on school buses. Their sacrifice was not in vain, but if you're struggling, please reach out. You are not alone.
Absolutely.
We're seeing a huge uptick in calls into veterans lines and suicide hotlines. And you know the ramifications from this are going to be felt for years. And we have to be there to help one another get through it. But right now, today, it's about getting our Afghan allies and Americans that just last night were left outside the gate, despite my calls and others. We have to get them out. We don't leave them behind.
Right. You don't. No American should be left behind.
Right.
We really appreciate it, Congressman Michael Waltz. Thank you for talking to us, and thank you so much for your service, sir.
Okay.